Hi everyone, well that's a wrap on Agile 2022 in Nashville. The Easy Agile team is back home in Australia and we spent most of our journey home talking about all of the amazing conversations that we got to have with everyone in the Agile community. It was great catching up with customers, partners, seeing old friends and making lots of new ones. We managed to record some snippets of those amazing conversations and we're excited to share them with you, our Easy Agile podcast audience. So enjoy!
Marcik, thanks so much for taking time with us today. First, can I start by, can you let us know what was the best thing you learned this week?
Oh, that was definitely at Melissa Sperry's talk, when she talked about, like to me, she was talking about slowing down, and what we do in Agile, it's not just delivery, but very much learning and changing on things that we already built and finding out what value we can give to customers, not just ship features. It's all about value. That's what I learned.
That's great, thank you. So, what do you think would be the secret ingredient to a great Agile team?
Humility. Somehow, the team culture should embrace humility and mistakes, and people should not be afraid of making mistakes, because without making mistakes you don't learn. That's what I think.
So what would be, I guess if there's one Agile ceremony that every team should do, what do you think that might be?
For sure, retro. And that comes back to the mistakes and learning part.
Yeah, fantastic.
No
That's
worries.
great. Thanks so much for taking
Thank
time.
you.
Cheers.
Gil, thank you so much for chatting with us. So we're all at Agile 2022 in Nashville at the moment. There's lots of interesting conversations happening. If you could give one piece of advice to a new forming Agile team, what would it be?
It would be to finish small, valuable work together. It has a terrible acronym, FSVWT. So it cannot be remembered that way. Finish small, valuable work together. There's a lot of talk about process, working agreements, tools. This is all important. But sometimes it's too much for a team that's starting out. And so if we just remember to finish small, valuable work together, that's a great start.
Yeah, I love that. And you were a speaker at the conference.
Yes.
Can you give our audience a little bit of an insight into what your conversation was about?
What happens in many situations is that engineering or development doesn't really work collaboratively with product/business. And instead there is a handoff relationship. But what happens is that in the absence of a collaborative relationship, it's really hard to sustain agility. People make a lot of one-sided assumptions, and over time, how decisions get made causes the cost of change to grow and the safety to make changes to decrease. And when that happens, everything becomes harder to do and slower to do, so the agility takes a hit. So the essence of the talk was, how can we collaboratively, so both product and engineering, work in ways that make it possible for us to control the cost of change and to increase safety. So it's not just collaboration of any kind. There are very specific principles to follow. It's called technical agility. And when we do that, we can have agility long term.
Great, I love it. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at the conference.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Tanil here from Easy Agile with Josh from Deloitte, and we're going to have a quick chat about team retrospectives. So Josh, thank you for taking the time to have a quick chat. So you're a bit of an expert on team retrospectives. What are your top tips?
So my top tips for retrospective is first, actually make a change. Don't do a lessons observed. I've seen lots of them. Actually make a change, even if it's just a small one at the end. The second, and part of that is make your change an experiment. Something you can measure, something that you can actually say, yes, we did this thing and it had an impact. May not be the impact you wanted, but it did have some kind of impact. The second tip is vary your retrospectives. Having a retrospective that's the same sprint after sprint after sprint will work for about 2 sprints, and then your productivity, your creativity out of a retrospective will significantly reduce.
That's an excellent point. So how do you keep retros fresh?
Lots and lots of thinking about them and doing research and using websites like Tasty Cupcakes, but also developing my own retrospectives. I've done a retrospective based on the Pixar pitch. There's 6 sentences that define every Pixar movie. Take the base sentences, apply them to your sprint or to your PI, and do a retro and allow the team the creativity to create an entire movie poster if they want to, directed by because it happens. People get involved and engaged when you give them alternatives, different ways of doing retrospectives.
That's great. So for those teams that aren't doing retrospectives at the moment, what's the one key thing they need to think about? What's the one key thing you could tell them to encourage them to start?
If you're not doing retrospectives, you're not doing Agile. Wait, so I shouldn't say that. But if you're not doing retrospectives, if you truly believe that you have absolutely nothing to improve and you're 100% of the best, meaning you're probably working at Google or Amazon or Netflix, although they do retrospectives. So if you truly believe that you are the equivalent of those companies, then maybe you don't need to do them. But I'm pretty sure that every team has something they can improve on, and acknowledging that and then saying, how are we going to do that? Retrospectives are a very fast, easy way to start actually making those improvements and making them real.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat to us briefly about retrospectives.
Thank you.
We're here with Leslie, who is the president of Women in Agile. Leslie, there was an amazing event on Sunday. Just talk to us a little bit about it. What went into the planning? How was it to all be back together again?
It was amazing to have the Women in Agile community back together, right? Our first time since 2019 when everyone was together in Washington, D.C. for that event. And it's, the better part of 6 or 7 months of planning. We had about almost 200 people in the room. Fortunately, we know the format of these Women in Agile sessions that we do, part of the Agile Alliance conferences every year, right? We've got a general opening. We've got a great keynote who is always someone that is adjacent to the Agile space. We don't want to just we want to infuse our wisdom and knowledge with people that aren't already one of us, because we get all of the Agile stuff at the big conference when we're there. So that part, we always have Launching New Voices, which is really probably one of my most favorite Women in Agile programs. 3 mentees that have been paired with seasoned speakers taking stage for the first time to share their talent and their perspective. So that's really great. And then some sort of interacting networking event. And so that pattern has served us really well since we've been doing this since 2016, which is a little scary to think it's been happening that long. And it's become a flagship opportunity for our community to come together in a more global fashion because the Agile Alliance does draw so many people for their annual events.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was a great event. I know that we all had a lot of fun being there. What was your one key takeaway from the event?
I'm going to go to Kat Sweetle's interactive networking that she did with us, and really challenging us to lean into our courage around boundaries and ending conversations. We don't have to give a reason. If some conversation's not serving us or is not the place that we need to be for whatever reason, you absolutely have that agency within yourself to end that conversation and just move on. I love the tips and tricks she gave us for doing that well.
Yes, I love that too.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank you for having me.
Hi, Evan. How are you?
Very good.
That's good. Can you please tell me what's the best thing you learned today?
The best quote I've got: politics is the currency of human systems.
Wow.
Right? So if you want to change a human system, you got to play the politics,
Fantastic.
which feels crappy, but
That's the way it is.
that's the way it is.
Okay, next question. Tell me about what is the Agile Ceremony that you and your team can't live without?
Retrospective. With the retrospective, you can create everything else.
Fantastic. That's really good. And what do you think is probably the key ingredient to a good retrospective?
Trust. Trust requires respect. It requires credibility. It requires empathy. So trust is like that underpinning human capability.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Right, we're here with Cody from AppFire. So Cody, how are you enjoying the conference so far?
I'm really loving the conference. It's been awesome. To be honest, when we first got here, it seemed maybe a little bit smaller than we thought. but the people here has been incredible, highly engaged, which was always great. And plus, a lot of people are using Jira and Atlassian, so love big plus.
Win-win for both,
Yeah,
right?
always.
Very good.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting talks happening. Have you attended any that have really, sparked an interest in you?
Yeah, I can't remember any of the talk names right off the top, but they've all been incredibly insightful, tons of information. It seems like there's been a topic for everything, which is always a great sign and stuff like that. So my notes, I have pages and pages and pages of notes, which is always a good sign. So I'm going to have to go back and enter them again and stuff. But it's been incredible, and the talks have been very plentiful. So, yeah.
Good. And what is the one key takeaway that you're looking forward to bringing back and sharing with the team?
Well, I think one of the key takeaways for us was that I talked about the engagement that everybody has, but one thing that's been incredible is to hear everybody's stories, to hear everybody's problems, their processes, all of that stuff. So all of that information is going to be a great aggregate for us to take back and create a better experience with our product and all that good stuff. So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now I have one last question for you. It's just a fun one. It's a true or false. We're doing Aussie Trivia. Are you ready for this one? Okay.
Hopefully.
So my true or false is, are budgie smugglers a type of bird?
Are buggy smugglers
Budgie smugglers
a
a type of bird?
True.
False. No.
What are they?
Speedos.
Yeah, well, I've got some of those up there in my luggage, so I'll bring the bucket.
With your Daisy Dukes.
Exactly.
And cowboy boots, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you so much,
Thank
Cody.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Doug, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Awesome. Well, tell me about what's the best thing you've learned today?
I think learning how our customers are using our products that we didn't even know about is really interesting.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to get out to many of the sessions at all?
I actually have not. I've been tied to this booth, or I've been in meetings that were already planned before I even came down here.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
That's good. So when you're back at work, what do you think is probably the best Agile ceremony that you and your team can't live without?
I think what I'm bringing back to the office is not so much ceremony. It's really from a product perspective. I work in product management, so for us, it's how we can explain how our product brings value to our customers. So many lessons learned from here that we're really anxious to bring back and kind of build into our value messaging.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, that's great. Thanks very much.
He was one of the co-authors of the Agile Manifesto. Firstly, how are you doing the conference so far?
Oh, working hard.
Yeah, good stuff.
Enjoying Nashville.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It's so different with the live what's happening. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's nice to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. And seeing three-dimensional.
Yes, yeah, no, it's interesting. So how you doing? Yeah. Lots
IRL.
Lots of interesting talks happening. What's been any key takeaways for you? What are you going to take back to share with the team?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I've mostly been talking with a lot of friends that I haven't seen in a while. And since I've only been here a couple of days, I haven't actually gone to much, if anything.
Yeah.
To be frank.
I know, we're all pretty busy on the booth, aren't we?
Yeah. But certainly the kinds of conversations that are going on are... I was a little bit worried about Agile, like, I don't want to say, I won't say it, but I don't want to say, Agile becoming a junk term. But I think there's a lot of people here that are actually really still embracing the ideals and really want to learn what to do and practice. So I'm frankly, surprised and impressed and happy. There's a lot. If you just embrace more of the manifesto and maybe not all of the prescriptive stuff sometimes, kind of get back to basics.
So let's talk about that, the Agile Manifesto, and embracing that. What does embracing mean? Can you elaborate on that a bit more? So we know we've got the principles there. Is there one that really stands out more than another to you?
Well, in my world of what I was doing at the time was I'd done a lot of Defense Department waterfall and built my own sort of lightweight process, as we call it, for Agile. So to me, the real key. This doesn't have the full, but if you go to the website and you read at the top, it talks about we are uncovering ways by doing, and I'm still learning, I'm still uncovering, and I think it's important for people to realize we really did leave our ego at the door, and being humble in our business is super important. Yeah, so that might not be written anywhere in the principles, but if the whole thing at the preamble at the top, and the fact that we talk about how we value those things on the blog versus the whole, there's a pendulum that you could swing. Both of those things belie in my opinion, one of the most important traits that we should exercise is being humble, treating things as a hypothesis. Like, don't just build features because you thought them up. How can you sneak up on the answer? So that's what I want people to take with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. Well, thank you so much, John. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and yeah, enjoy what's left of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to go on a mall tomorrow. So.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today. Can I ask you both, what do you think is the best thing you've learned today?
The best thing I've learned today.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting one. So, because I'm here at the booth a lot, so I don't get to attend a lot of things. So there were two things I learned that were really important. One, which is that the Easy Agile logo is an upside down A because it means you're from Australia, so it's down under. And then the second most important thing I learned about today was we were in a session talking about sociocracy and about how to make experiments better with experiments, which sounded a little weird at first, but it was really all about going through like a mini A3 process. For those of you listening, that's something that was done at Toyota. It's a structured problem solving method. But instead of going one time around and then going through the experiment, going around 2 or 3 times and then deciding that's the right experiment and going forward.
I've been at the booth most of the time, but from that, you meet a lot of people all over the world, and we really have like one thing in common, which is wanting to help people. And it's really been nice to be in a room of people, if they're at the beginning of their journey or they're really seasoned, that their motivation is just to really empower others. So it's been really nice to be around that kind of energy.
We've really learned that our friends from Australia are just as friendly up here as you are on the other side. I thought when you come on this side you get mean, but it turns out you're just as nice up here too.
It depends how long we've been off the plane.
Oh, is that what it is?
6 weeks, okay.
Good.
All right, one more question.
Sure.
What do you think is the secret ingredient for a successful team?
What do I think this is? Oh, that's a really good question. That's
He's the best one to answer.
That's a
the
little
question.
longer than a 2-second podcast. But I'll tell you this: it may not be psychological safety.
Okay.
Just because Google said that, and Project Aristotle showed that. I think to have a really successful team, you need a really skilled Scrum Master. Because to say that the team has psychological safety is one ingredient. It's not the only ingredient. A strong Scrum Master, someone who's really skilled, can create that psychological safety, but also help with all the other aspects of getting ready to collaborate and coordinate in the most positive way possible. Plus, searching for, her name is Kai Zander. On Slack, she calls herself Kai Zen. You get it? It's a joke. But that's the whole thing, is that a really skilled Scrum Master helps the teams find the Kaizens that they need to really get to become high performing. So psychological safety is an enabler of it, but that doesn't mean it creates the performance. It's an ingredient to make it happen.
There's no better answer than that one. Let's do it. Exclamation.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
We're here with Kerry from Path to Agility. Kerry, what have you been really loving about this conference?
The thing I've loved the most about this conference so far is the interaction with all the people that are here. It's really nice to get together, meet different folks, network around, have the opportunity to see what else is out there in the marketplace, and then of course talk about the product that we have with Path to Agility. It's a wonderful experience to get out here and to see everybody. And it's so nice to be back out in person instead of being in front of a screen all the time.
And favorite aspect of Nashville? What do you love?
Oh, wow. the greenery. It's really beautiful here. So I'm from Austin, Texas, and there's a lot of similarities between the two cities, but it's definitely a little bit more green here. There's a wonderful downtown life here. Had the opportunity to experience that the other night, and so I highly recommend visiting Nashville if you ever get an opportunity.
One key takeaway from the conference, what is it for you?
I think the key takeaway for me is the relationships. I come back to that all the time. It's one of the key aspects of being at a conference is getting to know different products that are out there in the marketplace and getting to know different people and really building on your community. And community is huge, especially these days. We all want interaction whenever we can get it. And so that's my one takeaway is just the interaction that I've been able to have here. And to work with folks and see how they light up when they see our product.
And last question, it's a true or false Australian trivia. Are drop bears real or not real?
What now?
Drop bears. Real or not real?
Not real.
Well done. They're not real. They're not real.
Joseph, thanks for taking time. Tell me, what's the best thing you learned today?
I think just in general the interactions, and especially with the pandemic, it's so refreshing to be here face to face with people. Some that you know, and some that are many that are just new faces. You realize how much you really missed it, and the connections, which, considering we're in an agile space, is the core of what we do. Connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had a chance to get to many of the sessions?
I've tried to as much as I can, but it's also important to take that time to decompress and let everything sink in. So here we are having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking back to work, what do you think is the one Agile Ceremony that you and your team, that helps you and your team the most?
I think that finding different ways to collaborate, effective ways to collaborate, and in terms of work management, how are we solving some of the problems that we have? There's so many tools that are here to make that easier, which is made pretty special. Speaking to people and finding out how they go about solving problems.
And what do you think makes a really great Agile team?
Well, you could say something very cliche like being very adaptive and being change and so on and so forth. But I think it really comes down to the interaction between people, understanding one another, encouraging one another, and just the way you work together.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you. It was nice chatting with you guys all week long.
Cheers. Dan, thanks for taking the time to chat. What do you think is the best thing you learned today?
Oh, the best thing I learned today. The morning products keynote was excellent. Got a couple tips on how to do product management, different strategies, how you have folks balancing their focus on the tactical and the strategic. So just some nice little nuggets how to do it.
Cool. Lindy, thanks for joining us today. Can we start by asking what do you think is the best thing you've learned this week?
The best thing I've learned this week is there's no right way to do Agile. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, and so it's really about figuring out what the right process is for the organization you're in, and then leveraging those success patterns.
Is there, well, I guess on that note, is there one kind of Agile ceremony that you think your team couldn't do without?
My team, the daily stand-up being daily. I think a lot of our teams they talk all day long, they don't necessarily need to sync up that frequently. So I've had a few teams already that go down to like 3 days a week, and it seems to work for them. The other maybe key takeaway that I've seen folks do is time boxes. So no meetings from 10 to 2 or whatever it may be, and really driving that from a successful perspective.
Yeah. I guess on that note, what do you think makes a really successful Agile team?
The ability to talk to each other, that ability to communicate. And so with all of our teams being either hybrid or remote, making sure that we have the tools that let them feel like they can just pick up and talk to somebody anytime they want, I think is key. And a lot of folks still don't have cameras, right? Which is baffling to me, but that ability to see facial expressions, being face to face has been so nice because we're able to get that. So that's the other key, is just that ability to talk to each other as though I can reach out and touch you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Rob and Andrew, thanks so much for taking a few minutes with us. Can I start by asking you, what do you think is the best thing you learned this week?
For me, it's definitely fast scaling agile, which we learned about this morning. Excellent. We're going to try it immediately.
For me, I really enjoyed the mob programming session and learning kind of different ways to connect engineers and collaborate.
Great. Next up, I guess, what do you think makes a great Agile team?
First and foremost, that they're in control of how they work and what they work on, more than anything else.
Yeah, for me, I'd say obviously psychological safety and just having a good team dynamic where they can disagree but still be respectful and come up with great ideas.
And is there one Agile ceremony that you think a great team can't live without?
Probably retrospective. I think the teams need to always be improving, and that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Appreciate it.